Elevated work platforms, operator awareness training. We will go over introduction to elevated work platforms, workplace responsibilities, types of platforms, hazards, equipment inspection and maintenance, procedures and personal protective equipment, and training requirements. Introduction to elevated work platforms.
This course has been prepared as a theory-based safety and safe operation training that all new elevated work platform operators must take prior to operating a mobile elevated work platform. Site-specific training must also be completed once this online
Training has been completed. Sorry about that. Darn hackers are always trying to mess up the elevated work platform training. We will go over different types of equipment in this course, such as static type, vertical scissors, vertical personal lifts, static boom, self-propelled boom with outrigger and vehicle mounted platform, mobile vertical scissor lift, vertical personnel platform, and mobile boom and self-propelled boom. Who can tell me what an MEWP is? Yes, you.
An MEWP is a mobile machine. It is used to move persons to working positions where they are carrying out work from the work platform, with the intention that persons are getting on and off the work platform only at access positions at ground level or in the chassis. It consists at a minimum of a work platform with controls and extending structure in the chassis.
Regulations and workplace responsibilities. Would you look at that? It's time for a pop quiz. You must memorize all these numbers. No, just joking. But in all seriousness, there's different regulations. There's different papers on each type of lift that you're going to use. And elevated work platforms must be engineered and tested to meet the requirements of the national standards of Canada. This is a larger device, so you got to remember, it's got to be inspected each day before use, and it's got to be inspected by someone who knows what to look for on the inspection. The owner and the supplier must keep a log of all these inspections, tests, repairs, any modifications made to the machine, and the maintenance being done. We do this through our ProWeb app. The log, it's got to be kept up to date, and it's got to include the names and the signatures done. Before you use the machine, you want to make sure that a maintenance and an inspection has been done. So you can look at the machine, look for an inspection tag. It should be near where you're going to climb onto the machine to use. It's got to have the last date of the maintenance and inspection performed and who performed it with their signature. Also, workers must be trained to operate that class of scissor lift. So you have to have some sort of training in this lift before you even want to get on. You have to have been given oral and written instructions. So look at the company's safe work practices, read the manufacturer's instructions. You can find that in the manual. Again, the instruction must include the manufacturer's instructions. You have to know the load limit charts and the limitations on the type of surface. You want to make sure as a supervisor that all of your workers are closely watched while it's the first time. And if you're a first-time worker using this, you want to make sure that your supervisor is nearby paying attention. Just don't go and jump on the machine and start operating it without knowing the risks and the hazards and someone available to pay attention to what you're doing. If you're on your machine and you're moving it, anyone that's on the machine with you must be attached by your fall protection and attached to the anchor point on the platform. While the machine is being used, all workers, if it's a self-propelled or vehicle-mounted boom type or vehicle-mounted aerial device, they must be attached to the method of fall protection to an adequate anchor point. Hey, look, it's not just a fun toy to play on. We've got some responsibilities. The health and safety responsibilities of all the parties on site. They're outlined in the Green Book through the IRS. Because mobile elevated work platforms are often rented from equipment supplier, sometimes there can be confusion of the responsibilities. So we're going to go over some of those responsibilities now in a little more detail. The owner or the supplier responsibilities. So bringing out a lift to the site, whether it's an owner or from an equipment manufacturer, they got to make sure that it is in good condition, it complies with the regulation, it's maintained in good condition, it conforms to the appropriate standards, and it includes the correct load rating charts if required. So the lift's now on site. The employer puts a supervisor in charge. So that person's got to make sure that the operator who's going to be using it is competent, know that the machine has a correct load rating capacity for the job, the equipment has to be maintained, and all the protective devices that go with the equipment are maintained. We have to fill out a logbook for each platform. So every time there's an inspection, ensure that the workers who are using the lift are using the appropriate personal protective equipment. Keep the manufacturer's operating manual on site, usually stays in the manual basket. And you have to make sure that all the workers are trained for each type of equipment on site. So if it's a scissor lift or a boom, depending on what type, that worker has received practical training for that specific lift. Worker or operator responsibilities. All right, now it's your turn. You're ready to hop on. So you want to make sure that you have the adequate training to be fully competent. Do you feel comfortable on the machine? Only operate the machine when you feel comfortable, when you've used it a little bit before bringing it into a higher risk area. You want to operate the machine in a safe manner and is prescribed by the manufacturer and also our health and safety policy. Inspect the equipment daily before use. Perform function tests before each use. Report any defects to the supervisor. And read and understand and obey the manufacturer's safety rules, including the operation manual and warning decals. So listen, if something doesn't seem right and you shouldn't be using this machine, let your supervisor know. Let's get it corrected so there's no further issues. If when you're doing your daily inspection on the equipment and you find something defective, remember, let your supervisor know and tag it out right away. Don't be using something that's defective, missing guards, or not working. All right, section 3, types of elevated work platforms. All right, so you have two basic types of mobile elevating work platforms. You have your scissor and you have your boom. And both of these types share three major components. They have a base, a lifting mechanism, and a platform assembly. On-slab models. On-slab models are used for smooth, hard surfaces such as concrete or pavement. They're not designed for uneven or sloping ground. So don't take them off the pavement or you're going to get them stuck. Normally, they have solid rubber tires, generally powered by rechargeable DC batteries. Some powered by internal combustion engines, others are gasoline or propane. Most have pothole protection. It's that little metal plate there at the bottom. It gets lowered close to the ground, gives you some protection against moving too fast or going into depressions or going over debris. And then you have these, the rough terrain models. They're used on firm level surfaces, graded or compact soil or gravel. They're similar to the design of the on-slab machines, but they're built to handle rigorous off-slab challenges. Normally they have a wider wheelbase with larger wheels and pneumatic tires. Some are fitted with outriggers for extra stability, usually powered by internal combustion engines, gasoline, diesel, or propane. Battery units are also available, but they're not so common. And lifting mechanism is hydraulic. The scissor type machine, they're usually raised and lowered by hydraulic pistons and an expanding scissor mechanism. Platforms are available in various configurations with different capabilities for extension and movement. Some have platforms that are extendable or that can rotate. Extendable platforms should be retracted before raising or lowering the device. Scissor type machines range in capacity from 500 to several thousand pounds and are available with platform heights reaching 15 meters, 50 feet or more, enough to make your knees shake unless you like heights. The controls must be oriented correctly so that the operator does not inadvertently move the machine in the wrong direction. Many machines have color-coded directional arrows on the chassis to aid the operator in moving the machine. Did you know that the scissor type controls, although that they're attached to the platform, you can actually detach them from the one side and move them to the other. So if you have to move in a different direction, you can always see where you're going by moving the control panel. It's very handy. The self-propelled boom supported platform, normally fitted with rough terrain undercarriages, some smaller on-slab units. Platforms have lifting capacity of about 500 pounds or 2 workers, lack capacity of scissor-type machines, usually powered by an internal combustion engine, gasoline, diesel, or propane. The booms are usually telescopic, articulating, or there could be a combination of both. They're raised and extended by hydraulic cylinders and can extend well beyond the wheelbase. Although the controls are in a fixed position, you can become disoriented by the machine rotation, but you must be aware of the direction of the movement. Many machines have color-coded directional arrows to help you move the machine in the right direction. Warning, really pay attention here. Really know this stuff. The smallest movement can have the biggest impacts. As with mobile cranes, stability decreases with length of boom and boom angle as the center of the gravity moves in relation to the platform position. The machine will overturn if the center of the gravity moves outside the machine's base. The machine comes with load charts that show safe operating configurations. Spend some time to know these and to know the limits. Machines with booms long enough to cause overturning at low boom angles are required to have radius limiting interlocks to prevent operation in unstable configurations. Also, really know this load reach chart. Notice that the machine does not achieve its maximum height directly overhead, nor does it achieve its maximum reach at ground level. You must be familiar with the operating range of the individual make and model that you are using. This knowledge is essential in order to position the machine correctly and reach the work location safely that you're trying to get to. The non-self-propelled or push-around. As the name indicates, push-around powered platforms are not self-propelled, and they must be transported from one location to the other with an independent power source or manually in the case of a small device. The machines are intended primarily for use on smooth, level, hard surfaces or on slab conditions. Some trailer-mounted units are available. Many of these devices can fold up to pass through a standard door and can be transported by a pickup truck. As a result, they are suitable for maintenance or renovation work. The push-arounds. The push-arounds raising mechanism, normally powered by a gasoline or propane engine or by electric motors, either AC or DC. Normally raised and lowered by hydraulic cylinders, platform capacities vary from 300 to 1,000 pounds or more, but are generally less than 500 pounds. As platform is raised, the risk of overturning increases. Extra care is needed and required when operating at maximum heights. There are many different types and designs and different uses, so it's essential to select the right machine for the right job. Look, I know manuals and other safety related materials might not always be the most exciting stuff to read, but they can actually help you save your life and make you from making some of these typical mistakes. The typical mistakes may include using an on-slab machine on rough terrain, using a unit undersized with respect to height, reach, and lifting capacity, extending the platform with planks, ladders, and other devices because the machine can't reach the required height, failing to assess the job needs before starting, and using the wrong machine or not ordering the right machine to do the right job. Take the time at the beginning. Some factors to consider when selecting a machine is the capacity, the surface condition, platform size and configuration, mobility, material to be lifted, access, operator skill or training, and work environment. And remember, if your supervisor tells you to go over there and grab a lift, make sure that you choose the right one if there is more than one option. And don't ever be scared to ask on your first time using this equipment which the right one may be. When selecting the right capacity, some things that you might want to think about is if the machine has the lifting capacity to reach and the height to complete the task. When selecting for surface conditions, are the surface conditions hard or soft, sloped or level? Will the ground have an effect on the type of machine selected? When selecting for platform size and configuration, do you need a regular or extendable platform? Is there a rotation required? Are there space restrictions to consider? For mobility, is there a boom type better suited than a scissor lift to the task at hand? What are you going to be lifting? Will the machine be able to lift the size and the weight of the material required for the job? Selecting access. Will the machine be able to travel around the workplace safely? Are there obstructions or depressions that will restrict the use of certain machines? Operator skill and training. Are the people on site competent to operate the machine? Has the operator received propane training if they have to change out propane tanks? You also need to select based on your work environment. Is the work going to be done indoors or in an area that's really bad ventilated? Will an electrically powered machine be required? Select properly and remember, the smallest movements can have a big impact. Section 4. Hazards. Many factors can cause instability. Sudden stops, depressions, drop-offs, overreaching and overloading, etc. Overturning and tipping result in many fatalities and injuries, just like the last video that you had just seen. Do not disarm safety features, such as the tilt or level warning and the deadman switch. They let operators know when they are in a dangerous situation. Overriding the deadman switch has resulted in a fatality, so has malfunction of the tilting warning. Working near overhead wires can result in electrocution. This can happen when using any type of machine. When the machine can't reach the working height desired, don't compensate by using scaffold planks, ladders, blocks, wood, or other makeshift arrangements. Such practices leads to falls and machine instability. Overloading the platform. MEWPs that are overloaded or loaded unevenly can become unstable and fail. Boom-type machines are especially sensitive to overloading. Always stay within the operating range specified by the manufacturer. Failure to cordon off. MEWPs have been struck by other construction equipment or oncoming traffic when the work area is not properly marked or cordoned off. Workers can be injured if they inadvertently enter an unmarked area and are struck by falling material, tools, or debris. In unmarked areas, workers can be injured by swinging booms and pinched by scissor mechanics. Accidental contact. Moving the machine or platform may cause contact with workers or with obstacles. Use a designated signaler on the ground to guide the operator when the path of the travel isn't clear or access is very tight. Improper maintenance or modifications. MEWPs should be maintained by competent workers in accordance with the manufacturer's instructions. No modification should be made to the machine without the manufacturer's approval. Improper blocking during maintenance. Failing to block or improperly blocking the machine, the boom, or platform can cause serious crushing injuries and property damage. Improper access. Don't access the platform by climbing the scissors or the boom. Don't use the extension ladders to gain access. Ladders exert lateral loads on the platform that can cause overturning. For the safest access, lower the machine completely. Moving with the platform raised. Remember our goal to take 5 to stay alive? Lower the platform before moving the machine. Slight dips and drops are amplified when the platform is raised and can cause the machine to overturn. Only move the machine with the platform raised if both of the following conditions are met. The machine is designed to move with the platform raised, the supporting surface is smooth and level, and workers are protected by using and wearing an adequate means of fall protection. Workers are not permitted to exchange propane cylinders or handle liquid fuels or batteries unless they have a certificate or record of training in propane handling. Precautions should be taken to prevent spills and sparks. Pinch points. Clothing, fingers, and hands can get caught in scissor mechanisms. As platforms are raised, machines may sway. Workers can be pinched between guardrails and the structure. Position the platform so the worker takes place above the guardrail height. Section 5. Equipment inspection and maintenance. Equipment inspections. All components that bear directly on the safe operation of the MEWP and can change from day to day must be inspected daily. Inspection is mostly visual, done in a quick but thorough manner. Users must check the operator's manual for a complete list of pre-operational checks. Before climbing into the platform, you want to check for the following. You want to check your tires for proper pressure and make sure the wheels are not loose or missing lug nuts. Check your steer cylinder, linkage, and tie rods for loose or missing parts, damage, and leaks. Check your hydraulic hoses, lift cylinders, and connections for leaks or loose connections. Example of this would be a small pool of hydraulic fluid. And check your fuel supply. Make sure that there's adequate fuel, the filler cap is in place, there's no damage, leaks, and or spills. Before climbing onto the platform, check for the following. Beacon and warning lights for missing and defective lenses or caps. Ground controls, including manual and powered, including emergency stop switch and platform lower lift switch for proper function and damaged and missing control sticks and switches. Check the decals, check and warning signs to make sure they're clean, legible, and conspicuous. On the platform, check for the following. Platform assembly for loose and missing parts and missing or loose lock pins and bolts. Platform floor for structural damage, holes, or cracked welds, and any dirt, grease, or oil that can create a hazard. Operator's manual to make sure it's in place. Extendable platform deck for ease of extension, retraction, and proper function of locking position of platform. Check the guardrails to make sure they're in place. Check the access gate for ease of movement. Missing parts, latch and locking capabilities are working. All fall protection anchor points. All control mechanisms for broken or missing parts. Check all emergency controls for proper function, stopping, descending, master off switch. Check all safety devices such as tilt and motion alarms for malfunction. Check swivels for freedom or rotation. Check scissors for smooth movement up and down. Check brakes for stopping capabilities, and check horn for proper function. Now that you've checked your machine, you're going to want to go and check the work area. Check your work area for drop-offs or holes in the ground, any slopes, bumps or floor obstructions, debris, overhead obstructions. Make sure there are no overhead wires, power lines, or other electrical conductors in your work area. Check for hazardous atmospheres, adequate operating surface on the ground or floor. Provide sufficient ground or floor support to withstand all forces imposed by the platform in every operating configuration, and check for wind and weather conditions throughout your shift. Section 6. Procedures and personal protective equipment. Stability and tipping. In general, MEWPs are well manufactured and are safe to use within their specific limitations. As with any equipment or tool, there are a lot of do's and don'ts to follow. One of the most dangerous hazards in operating MEWPs is tipping over. It is important that users understand what makes a platform stable and what causes it to tip over. To do this, you must understand the concept of the center of gravity, tipping axis or tipping point, and forces that shift the center of gravity. A tip can be caused by one or several of the following factors. Sudden movement of the unit or parts of the unit when elevated, adequate anchorage on the used or moved, sudden stopping when elevated, overloading or uneven loading of the platform, and traveling or operating on a slope or uneven terrain. Changing the weight distribution of the machine by adding attachments not approved by the manufacturer. Holes or drop-offs in the floor surface causing one wheel to drop suddenly. Operating the equipment in windy conditions. Stability is resistance against tipping over. It depends on the location of the center of gravity in relation to the tipping axes. Center of gravity. Every object has a center of gravity. It is the point where the object's weight would be evenly distributed or balanced. If a support is placed under that point, the object would be perfectly balanced. The center of gravity is usually located where the mass is mostly concentrated. However, the location doesn't always remain the same. Any action that changes the machine's configuration, such as raising the platform, extending the boom, or traveling on a slope, can change the location of the center of gravity. Tipping axes and the area of stability. When an MEWP turns over, it tips around an axis or point. This is called the tipping axis or tipping point. MEWPs typically have 4 tipping axes: front, back, left, and right. Each MEWP has its own area of stability. This varies from platform to platform and from model to model. In most cases, the area of stability is bound by the 4 tipping axes, or the 4 tires or outriggers. The platform is stable as long as the center of gravity remains inside the area of stability. This is the key to safe operation. Lowering the boom angle affects the center of gravity. In this example, the center of gravity moves towards the platform but remains inside the area of stability. When the center of gravity shifts beyond the area of stability, the machine will tip over. Some factors that can cause a shift beyond the stability area are overloading, moving over highly sloped ground, a sudden drop of one wheel, and shock loading. Raising the platform also raises the MEWP's center of gravity. When a scissor lift is situated on a slope and the platform is raised, the platform's center of gravity will move toward the tipping axes. If the center of gravity moves beyond the tipping axes, the platform will overturn. Boom-supported MEWPs work in the same way. When the boom is extended outward, the center of gravity moves outwards towards the tipping axes. The MEWP will overturn if the boom is extended such that the center of gravity moves beyond the axes. Boom-type machines have an interlocking system that prevents the machine from moving into an unstable configuration. Factors that affect stability include dynamic forces and traveling. Dynamic forces are forces generated by movement or change of movement. For example, applying the brakes suddenly or traveling too fast around corners can cause instability, as in a van or car. Sudden stops while raising or lowering the platform can also cause instability. Traveling the platform over rough or uneven ground can also cause instability. This figure here shows how a tire dropping 100 mils can cause the boom to sway 600 mils. It is important to lower the platform fully or to retract the telescoping sections while traveling, particularly on uneven surfaces. In section 144 of the construction regulations, there's a list of the specifications and signs that are required on an MEWP. Signs are clearly visible to the operator at the controls must indicate the following: the rated working load, all limiting operating conditions, including the use of outriggers, stabilizers, and extendable axles, the specific firm level surface conditions required for use in the elevated position, such warnings as may be specified by the manufacturer. Other than for a boom type MEWP, the direction of the machine movement for each operating control, the name and number of the National Standards of Canada standard to which the platform was designed, and the name and address of the owner. In addition, CSA standards require the following: the make, model, serial number, and manufacturer's name and address, the maximum platform height, the maximum travel height if not equal to the maximum platform height, the nominal voltage rating of the batteries if battery powered, a warning to study the operating manual before using the equipment, a notice outlining the required inspections, diagrams or description of the various configurations in which the platform can be used, the capacity in each configuration, a statement as to whether or not the platform is insulated, warnings against replacing without the manufacturer's consent components critical to the machine's stability. For example, batteries or ballasted wire tires with lighter weight components. The minimum weights of such components must be specified. Many of these signs are vital to the operation of the machine and the protection of workers. All signs and decals must be kept clear of dust and grease so that they can easily be read. Torn or damaged signs must be replaced. CSA standards also require that the manufacturer provide a manual containing the following information: the description, specifications, and capacities of the platform, the operating pressure of the hydraulic or pneumatic system that is part of the work platform, instructions regarding operation and maintenance, including recommended daily, weekly, and monthly inspection checklists, information on replacement parts. The manual must be stored on the platform in a weatherproof storage container. For the specific MEWPs you will use, you must be familiar with the manufacturer's operating manual, the manufacturer's warning and caution signs posted on the machine, the location of all emergency controls and emergency procedures, the daily maintenance checks to perform. Here are just some of the things that you should not do when using an elevated work platform. Do not exceed the rated load capacity. Do not use a platform without guardrails in place. Do not enter or leave a platform when it is elevated. Do not use ladders or other devices on the platform to gain extra height. Do not stand on guardrails to gain extra height. Do not lean over platform railings. Do not climb up or down extension or scissor areas. Do not use a defective platform. Do not use the platform as a jack. Do not use guardrails to carry materials unless designed for the purpose. Do not overload. Make sure the load is evenly distributed. Do not lift loads that overhang the platform, and do not use platform for pulling, pushing, or dragging materials. Do not trap the operator between the platform and the structure. The operator becomes trapped in a confined space and may not be able to reach the controls. Do not allow objects to fall onto people below. Do not use in poor weather, especially high winds that may tilt the platform. Do not move this elevating work platform unless all workers on it are properly protected against falling by a safety belt attached to the platform. General guidelines. Always check for overhead power lines before moving the machine or operating the platform. You must observe the minimum permitted distances from overhead power lines. See the chart below. When equipment operates within reach of, and could therefore encroach on, the minimum distance from a power line, make arrangements with the owner of the utility to have the power line de-energized. Otherwise, the constructor is required to have written procedures in place to prevent equipment from encroaching on minimum distance. Copies of the procedures must be available for every employee on the project. Allow for movement or sway of the lines as well as the platform. Be aware of overhanging tools or equipment. Wear a full body harness and tie off to a designated tie-off point while the machine is moving. If using a boom type or vehicle mounted MEWP, always be tied off. Do not leave the machine unattended without locking it or otherwise preventing unauthorized use. Do not load the platform above its rated working load, RWL. Make sure that all controls are clearly labeled with action and direction. Keep guardrails in good condition and ensure that the gate is securely closed before moving the platform. Shut off power and insert the required blocking before maintenance or servicing. Deploy stabilizers or outriggers according to the manufacturer's instructions. Don't remove guardrails while the platform is raised. Position the boom in the direction of travel unless the manufacturer specifies differently. Keep ground personnel away from the machine and out from the platform. Don't access the platform by walking on the boom. Don't try to push or move the machine by telescoping the boom. Do not use the machine as a ground for welding. Do not use a boom-supported platform as a crane. Don't operate the equipment in windy conditions. For safe wind speeds, refer to the operator's manual for the specific make and model you are using. Do not place the boom or platform against any structure to steady either the platform or the structure. Secure loads and tools on the platform so machine movement won't dislodge them. Make sure that extension cords are long enough for the full platform height and won't get pinched or severed by the scissor mechanism. Use 3-point contact and proper climbing techniques when mounting or dismounting from the machine. Warning: never operate equipment if you have not been trained or if you are not comfortable operating it. Even if you are qualified to operate it, take time to familiarize yourself with the operating characteristics of the equipment you are currently using, especially if it is different from the type of equipment you have previously used. The safety of you and others on site depends on the competent, knowledgeable operation of the equipment. Plan your fall protection system before starting your work. Consider all factors that affect your safety before, during, and after a fall. The following list of components give you some important points to consider when planning your fall. Full body harness. The full body harness is intended to support you during and after the arrest of a fall, during rescue operations, during work activities, and while working on EWPs. The connection can include snap hooks, carabiners, shock absorbers, or lanyards. The anchor. Manufacturer provided attachment points are to be used at all time. At no time is a guardrail to be used as an attachment point. A beam buddy. Adapter must be fit snug to anchorage point. You must have a rescue plan and the means at hand to implement the plan should a fall occur. Check your site-specific plan before operating. PPE inspection. Before each use of fall protection equipment, carefully inspect it to ensure that it is in serviceable condition. Check for worn or damaged parts. Ensure all hardware is present and secure and is not distorted or has sharp edges, burrs, cracks, or corrosion. Make sure the buckles work properly. Inspect webbing for cuts, burns, frayed, or other damage. Use our online inspection form to document each pre-use inspection completed. After the fall. Important. If the full body harness has been subjected to a fall arrest or impact forces, it must be immediately removed from service and destroyed. Maintenance. Clean full body harness with water and mild soap solution. Do not use bleach solutions. Any excessive buildup of dirt, paint, and etc. may prevent the full body harness from working properly, and in severe cases degrade the webbing to a point where it weakens and should be removed from service. Wipe off hardware with clean dry cloth and hang to dry. Do not force dry with heat. If you have any questions concerning the condition of your harness or have any doubt about putting it into service, contact the manufacturer. Section 7. Training requirements. Training requirements for the elevated work platform. You must have your working at heights training to be working on an MEWP. You have now just completed the Facca online training and have been given instruction on what to look for during your equipment inspection. You must now inform your supervisor that you will require practical training at site, how to perform an equipment inspection, and how to operate an MEWP. This should be done in a location away from the main site activity until you feel comfortable with the controls.